Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of Vehicles and Videos. We are talking about drift cars and what our top 10-ish list is and what we might purchase and build and start racing this spring.
Yep, I think we're on number 7 now. So,
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
yeah,
we've whittled down the list a little bit. We're talking about the RX8 tonight. Brenton, I remember, it came out in, I think, 2004, I think it was,
yep.
thereabouts.
I mean, they were talking about it for years prior. It might have been one of those ones that did make it out in '03 as an '04, because I remember there was so much hype on this car for sure. That was
Yeah.
the Zoom Zoom days. That was like Mazda was a little different then than it is now for sure, especially as far as marketing goes.
And you know what? So, like you said, there was a lot of hype about it. And so much so that it was featured in the X-Men movie in 2004. I can't remember which X-Men it was, but the advertising was the X-Men getting into the car and driving it
Oh,
around. Like that was the
okay.
commercial
Wow.
for
All right.
the RX-8. Like you said,
Interesting.
it was pretty hyped. I think a lot of people really liked the RX-7. And you know what? That one thing I didn't look. Um, what do you remember when the RX-7 stopped being produced in the United States?
96 or 7 sounds right in my head. So late 90s.
2002. 2002.
It made it all the way to yeah, okay, yeah. So I'm all right. So they did a different generate. Yeah, 2002. Okay, yeah, because they did an update on it. Yeah,
But you know,
yeah.
every once in a
So
while, I
so
feel
there
like.
that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say is like I feel like you're saying, like there's a certain Mazda crowd that's like the rotary engine crowd and
Hmm.
very much love their RX-7s. They like you said, when the RX-8 was coming out, there's a ton of hype. They were really excited for basically a new RX-7, right? The RX-8. Um, and I think that there's a lot of people that are really loyal to that rotary style engine. Um, I mean, it was cool. It was a cool car. It was 230 horsepower, which was a lot of horsepower for 2004.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's only like a 1.3 liter, which is kind of crazy.
Yep. But that Wankel engine isn't um rated the same as what we know of like a standard engine, because of its design. And I feel like we've touched on it before, but that the 1.3 displacement is still a really hard number to really kind of think about, because it's not a piston that's going up and down in a bore. It's a triangular, uh man,
Yeah,
the word,
they call it a Dorito, like a
yeah,
Dorito chip or
yeah,
Tostito
yeah,
chip that just
correct.
rotates.
So that piece spins around. So the 1.3 displacement is kind of not an accurate way to really talk about this engine compared to what we know of every other engine. Yeah.
And actually, I just pulled up some really quick. Here's a quick screenshot or
There
screen
you go.
grab
Yep.
of the of those things. Um, yeah, it's a neat engine. I mean, it's constantly spinning, it's constantly rotating. Um, it's it's not. It's just a different design. And you mentioned it in the last podcast that there's not a lot of them on the road, and I think that comes down to the rotary engine itself. I think a lot of people are scared of the rotary engine. The big thing that you might hear is apex seals and people
Yes. Yeah.
being really, really nervous about apex seals.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah, because the traditional rebuild of an engine is, right, most shade tree mechanics is pretty straightforward. This is a little bit different where you're splitting cases open. You're doing now the engine itself overall is a much lighter engine compared to a lot of internal combustion engines. So like if you compare it to like an inline 3 or an inline 4 that happen to be the same displacement 1.3, this engine would be significantly smaller and lighter. But the rebuild of a traditional engine is pretty straightforward. This one requires some special tools. It requires some knowledge. It requires a lot more than rebuild. And these engines aren't designed to last 200,000 miles without a rebuild, like a lot of modern, you know, Volkswagen engines, Honda engines, Mazda, Miata, even, you know, the 4-cylinder engines and that. So,
Yeah. You know, the I'm not sure if this was specific to the RX8 and the RX8 rotary motor, or if you found similar on the RX7 motors as well. But one of the things that I came across, like you were saying, it's kind of uh, a little bit different motor design. Um, they had an oil, like a oiler. So what it would do is it would actually pull the factory system would pull oil from the oil pan and put it into the combustion chamber to help oil all the apex seals and stuff like that, right?
yeah, yep.
And then then there's an update to that, or not so much an update, like an aftermarket version of that, whereas you don't pull it from the oil pan, and it's like a secondary oiler, or you can just block it off altogether and then kind of like a two-stroke motor, just mix your gas and oil and run it that way. Um, which I thought was kind of interesting when I was looking into this car a little bit, because uh, you know, I knew a little bit about rotaries prior to starting the podcast, and one of our first episodes was actually about the RX7 and the rotary. Um, but I didn't really fully realize that, like, that's the type of motor that, like, it's got a 9,000 RPM red line. Like, it just
Mhm.
wants to be hammered on.
Yeah.
And that's what drifting is about, right? And I thought that's one of the things that would be like beneficial, right? Like, well, this motor wants to scream, just make it scream. You
Yeah.
know?
No, 100%. And, you know, the thing is, you know, a well sorted engine going to that 9,000 RPM limit, they are known to do that and hold that, you might need to rebuild them more often, but um that that's the cool thing. Yeah, revving them out and hold them 6, 7,000, 8,000 RPM is is pretty standard for that engine, but it makes it not a great daily driver.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to your comment of like, hey, I haven't seen these on the road. Uh, it's got horrible gas mileage. I'm
Mhm.
sure all of them are in that like 2,000, 200,000 mile range now, and they probably all need to be rebuilt. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the things too, where it probably wouldn't be the worst rebuild for you and I to do, but at the
No.
same time, like, to buy a car that's, I think some of the reason that we like drift right now is that our idea is that we can buy a little bit more of a factory car, put about 5 different modifications that we've determined, basically seat, steering wheel, handbrake, suspension,
Mhm.
and let it rip, right? Like,
Right,
that's
right.
that's kind of that was more or less our modification list. Not that it has to stick to that, but now you're talking about, okay, well, maybe I can get a good deal, but I have to tear down the motor. And I can't tell you how many people pull a motor, tear it down, and then the project stalls, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
I mean,
well,
that's
while I'm
just so
here, I might as well do this. While I'm in here, I might as well do that. While I'm in that, I might as well do this as well. And yeah, so that's one of the things that does kind of like scare me. Like, I think it would be really fun to just to build the rotary motor. Um But and when I say build, rebuild, I should say, because
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not building it up. A lot of times when people talk about building a motor, it means that they're gonna increase the horsepower of it. I'm just rebuilding it to stock
yeah.
specifications,
Well, a lot of
basically.
people like to turbo them, and then they'll combine rotors, so it's like a
Yeah,
two rotor, three rotor, because they are such a compact design, and you can get a lot of horsepower out of them when you're turboing them and you're putting multiple rotors, in line, which sounds weird, but essentially that for that other picture you had, you can kind of sandwich them. I don't know if you have if you can just pull up just so people can see that are watching.
yeah. Let me.
You can essentially do a multi-rotor rotary engine, and you just add another. Yeah, that picture you have
Yeah,
up
there's
top is
actually
a
one
single
right
rotor.
here where there's like this
Yeah,
isn't really.
that's not the same thing.
It's more this
That
one
more
here
like that. Yep. Yeah.
where like you said, it's like here
You're
one rotor would
sandwiching.
be in this
Correct.
oval, and then another rotor would be in this oval, and
Correct.
then
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah, so you can essentially just stack them like you're building Legos. And
yeah,
for people that aren't watching, you can picture, a Lego that happens to be your rotary engine. Well, you're putting a plate, and then you're putting another Lego, and then that's making a two rotor engine. Yeah.
right.
And
Which
people
is
can they've sandwiched like three rotors in one engine bay.
yeah. I mean, could you imagine, like you buy a 4-cylinder car, and one day you just decide to add two more cylinders to make it a 6-cylinder, and
Right,
then
right. You could
you
just be
know,
like,
a,
"Oh, I'm just gonna put that onto the side there. Now I got an
or
inline six." Yeah.
so you've got your 4-cylinder, right, and then you just get another 4-cylinder, and now you've got a V8.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and obviously that's not how motors work. But in this scenario, it does, right? It's like you've got your rotor, and then
Hmm.
you've got your rotor, and
Yep.
uh,
Yeah. It's
which
pretty
is
interesting.
pretty cool. What were again in 2004 when it came out? I know you said overall it wasn't popular, but what was your kind of take on the car? What was your thoughts then,
See,
and what is it now?
for I was already working at an Audi dealership by then or no, sorry, Volkswagen dealership. I wasn't quite with Audi yet, but I still love the Mazda's products. I didn't totally love the styling versus the old gen. And
Yeah,
everybody, no one loves the new album that any music artist comes out with. The old one's always better. Um, but it definitely grew on me, and the fact that it was a little bit more practical in certain aspects made a lot of sense from a car manufacturer's standpoint. The previous generation was not really usable um, by anybody other than someone looking for a two-seater sports car.
yeah,
This at least added some ability to have, a back seat.
right. And they
Yeah.
even called it a 4-seater car, and I think to your point, the RX-7 was really a 2-seat or
Yeah.
a 2-person car.
Yeah.
Um, but it kind of, I don't know if it was the first, but it definitely introduced that mini suicide door.
Hmm.
I can't I know Saturn had one at the time too. Around 2004, there's maybe 2 or 3 different cars that kind of had that door.
Yep. I think
But
the Honda Element had it. They did it. Some trucks had
yeah,
it. So it
yeah,
wasn't, I don't think Mazda was one of the first, but I think they only did it on one side, right? They
yeah.
didn't do it on both sides. They only did it on one
I can't
side.
remember, but it does seem
Yeah.
like it's on just the driver's side. Let me see.
No, it's probably the passenger side, I think. But yeah. Um, Click on a picture and you'll see. But
Yeah, there it is on the passenger side. Let me see. I'm
yeah.
trying to find one with the driver's side.
I mean, all the
It looks
pictures
like
you
it is
happen
on
to
the
pull
driver's
up,
side too. It looks like
the
it's all 4.
yeah, these pictures you have up of drifting RX8s make it's way better than the Tacoma, way better than
Yeah.
the Lexus. I mean, everything, you're pulling up definitely makes me want to get out there and rip a car around for
Right.
sure. Like,
So
so if you're just comparing it to the 9 and 10 spot, this car definitely there's a reason why it made it to where it's at. Yeah.
so my problem in 2004, again, in high school, we had a buddy. He had an RX-7. I really liked the idea of an RX-7. Our dad was a big fan of the rotary engine and kept telling us that they were freaking phenomenal. So I liked the idea of the RX-8, but the RX-8 came out and I hated those front fenders. The front fenders were
Eh,
ridiculous, right? Like from the fenders back, I liked the car. So from the basically from the windshield back, I liked the car, and you can see a
mm.
lot of like the late gen RX-7 in it. But on the front fenders, I just thought were ridiculous. I didn't like how pokey and like
I
bulbous.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It almost seemed like there were sharp lines and there were bubbly lines. So like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so like the fenders seemed bubbly, but then there were other aspects that were sharp. And I
yeah.
will
It's like
say, you pulled up pictures of people that are made them into race cars and different things, and all they did is they put a front lower spoiler on it, like a valance, whatever the lower part of the front bumper, and then the graphics that they put on the car really change the way your eye looks at the contours.
yeah.
So some of those graphics alone change the way you're looking at it and make the
Like
car
I
look
think this
awesome.
the like you're saying with this green one, it does change those fender flares a little bit. I mean, this
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
is a much
Well,
wider
that's a
stance than a
different
factory car.
bumper. That's like a different, yeah,
Yeah, but like you're saying with that fender flare there, here's another one here. Like the flares, they end too,
yeah.
and I think that's some
So
of
there's some things that companies have come up with to really fix some of the quirkiness of the front. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but this is a little bit more factory here, the new drift missile. But I just like you said is like if all of this looks really nice. I don't even
So
mind the rear
the
fender.
cab area and
Yeah,
the rear, but I do agree the
this
front
this
didn't
just
quite
doesn't
match.
look
But
right.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it just doesn't look right. But I mean, I was excited for another rotary engine. I did kind of like the idea of the car outside of the fenders, the silly looking fenders. Um, and being an X-Men fan, I kind of like the fact that that the X-Men were
yeah.
were pushing the car. But um, uh, yeah, I mean now. Um, I'm not entirely sure where it is on my list. Uh, I think if I could get one for the right price,
Agree.
lower
Yeah.
miles, so that the motor probably doesn't need to be rebuilt, probably the better.
Hmm.
Um, but like now you're also adding different parts too because you if it doesn't have the oiling kit, right? Like that's something that you're going to have to definitely do for it, especially when you're drifting and you're probably banging on the oil anyway. But I don't I think it could be a cool looking car, and I think it could be a fun thing. The other thing is it comes in at like 3,000 pounds. I don't know why every car on our list is in that 3,000 pounds range.
Okay.
And yeah, 3,084 pounds. And while I've been told that it's pretty well balanced, I haven't driven one myself, but I've been told it's actually pretty well balanced. However, um, a lot of people refer to it on the heavy side. I guess it's on the heavy side for
It
the
it's
year.
it is on the heavy side. It feels heavy when you drive it.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I said this or not, but I almost bought one and I ended through auction. It had ended up having a coolant leak. I bid on it and everything. I flipped
Mm.
at the time. I was flipping a handful of cars a year. It wasn't my primary thing. It was like something to do. Um, and I bid on it. I was outbid by a little bit, and I was almost like thankful because I thought I bid too high, and someone else bid even higher than me. So like there was some
I got
desire
you. Yeah.
for it, clearly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm on Car Gurus, so I was paying attention 100%. But if you caught me like looking down here, uh, there's literally within 100-mile radius of the Poconos, Pennsylvania, there's one for sale,
Hmm.
and it's $20,000.
Wow.
It's black. It's got 27,000 miles on it. And if you're familiar with when you're looking for used cars, um, it has all the typical models. It's not even in the main models. You have to go down to the models that aren't as common. So even though this was like a Mazda production car, it's not
Yeah.
even searched enough to be in the common models. You have to go down to the like the other
Right.
section.
So
So that
I
like
did
yeah, so
I did a little bit of searching on, I think, Auto Trader and
yeah.
eBay Motors. And
Okay.
similar, I had the heart, like I could find RX8 parts. I could not
Okay.
find an RX8 at the
Yeah.
time of search. It doesn't mean that they haven't put something up in the meantime, but at the time of search, I could not find anything again. And I can't remember what my radius was that I was looking, but Facebook Marketplace, I can find them for like 3 grand all over the place.
Oh, okay. Facebook Marketplace. Yeah.
Yep.
Like
I
we talked about in the last podcast, people don't even want to sell the car. Like I don't know. I kind of gave up on that. If you're a true buyer looking for a real car, you'll eventually find a good deal on Marketplace. Yes, definitely
Yeah.
use it, but
I
it's
use it simply because it's local. I mean, it's more so like
yeah.
window shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, this car has rust there. Oh, this car has a tear there. Oh, this car has this problem. And then you start to see a lot of repeating issues and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So that's going to be a thing. Um, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I don't know if these things have just kind of like, you know, just I, gone away.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
like
Like,
now I did a 500-mile search, and I'm getting a lot more, and the prices aren't horrible. But
yeah,
once
I
again,
really saw them. I saw them in that $3,000 to $10,000 range, depending upon.
yeah, I'm finding a quite clean one, um, for just under 10, which I do think, isn't a horrible number. I don't know if I'd go much more than 10 for a race only project car for you and I on this particular model.
Right.
Neither one of us are aficionados on this, and we're not like buying it to collect it. We're not
Yeah.
buying it to restore it to
Right.
its a complete original. So I think we could find a decent car for under 10. Yes. Or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it's a. I don't know. It. I do like it better than the Lexus, and I do like it better than the Tacoma. And I started on this one. I thought maybe I'd keep a list. I haven't made the chart yet, but I was thinking about making a 0 to 60 chart
Okay.
because because I'm not sure if we'd ever drag race it or whatever else, but I'm sure like if we were to road race whatever car we end up getting, you're
Uh-huh.
gonna be hitting the brakes and then accelerating, and if it's slow, then it's slow, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Tacoma actually came in somewhere between 11 and 13 seconds for the 0 to 60. Um,
I believe it.
yeah, the RX. Meanwhile, the RX8 came in at 6.5 seconds,
Which is
and the
that's
Lex.
like a Toyota Camry these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Lexus IS came in somewhere between 6.1 and 6.9. I guess it depends on auto or manual or
Models
whatever.
and who did the tests and what
Trim
you
level,
know.
yeah, who has the heavier foot, whatever. But I just thought that was interesting. It I mean, depending upon what number you go for with the Lexus, it's just about the same speed as the Lexus, maybe a little bit faster, maybe a little bit
Mhm.
slower.
Yeah.
Um, and that's also making sure that you have the manual over the automatic. Weird thing is, The manual was like 130 horsepower, but the automatic was like, I think they claimed it was under 200 horsepower.
So 235, I think you said for the manual, and then the
Yeah.
automatic they detuned, and then the automatic was quite weird to drive. It was not. They should have just never made an auto. The technology with DSGs and uh, the modern transmission did not exist, and it was not designed to be with a high revving sports car at the time. That's for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
you could not drift an automatic without doing significant modifications to it, in my opinion.
no, absolutely, especially this car.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like this, yeah,
Yeah.
this car.
All right, so Brenton, I think we've covered a lot about this car. What would be some of your personal pros and cons of this car? And where do you think it is on your list? I know you kind of mentioned that, but I just want to round it out with
Yeah,
that
I
too.
mean, like, looking at some of the pictures you pulled up, it's super inspiring. I think for your and I age group, it's pretty badass looking because some of these brand new cars don't really inspire us like this kind of does. The um, availability, affordability of it, it's definitely better than the Lexus, so that's why it's where it is. But it still holds that. Is it how reliable is it? How
Hold on one second, guys. I have to invite Brenton back. His recording failed.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Where I'm not sure where I lost you.
You're talking about automatic.
It was way back then. Okay.
No, you said all right. So you said it was cool looking for our generation. It
Yeah.
was really cool looking.
Yeah. Okay.
It was not sure what else you said.
Yeah. No. All right. Yeah. So I mean, essentially, I mean, we'll have to cut and edit that. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened there. Because, um, but yeah. So I mean, I was comparing it to like the affordability of it versus the availability versus the reliability, and unfortunately, it's not known for its reliability. There's clearly not a lot for sale of good quality out there. But I still think I would put it above the Lexus, um, for sure. The fun factor is very high in this car, and I think that would outweigh the Lexus for me. And the Toyota, let's just face it, that's only where it is because it's like a free, cheap car. So
Yeah.
that's why it is where it is. Yeah.
um, likewise, as we're kind of deep diving in this a little bit, I'm kind of wondering, how accessible parts are. And I mean, obviously motor parts are probably accessible, but I'm talking about doors or glass or fenders or, whatever else.
Yeah.
If we're having a hard time finding them in our radius, I mean, is it because they're all in the junkyards that are close to us? Or,
Oh, yeah.
like how easy is it going to be to replace some of those things? Um, uh,
Yeah. I don't know. I think I started to touch on it, but it does look badass. I think it would be a fun car to get out there and just rip that engine and just spin those rear tires. You would Everybody that's a spectator would look up. You know what I mean? It has that cool factor to it in certain aspect.
has a very unique sound.
Yeah. So I think it it's sounding more appealing. Um,
Yeah.
Definitely, I see why it is where it is in our list. Yeah. And if the right one came along, it would make sense to just buy it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I need to know enough about apex seals and how to determine whether or not one is
Yeah.
bad or leaking
Well,
or
I think
or
I
needs to
think
be
one of the
rebuilt, or if you just buy it knowing that, "Hey, I'm buying this and I'm gonna redo the motor."
there's that aspect of everything. Yeah, coolant leaks, oil leaks,
Yeah.
um, the compression tests, lack of power. All these things are things that you're, as a rotary engine purchaser, you either have to be comfortable knowing you're rebuilding it, like you said, or you have receipts, or or you're,
Yeah.
or yeah, something. Yeah,
So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's in a good spot on the list. I think there's some exciting cars coming up. Next week we will be talking about the Cadillac CTS, aka the C5 and C6 Corvette, but really focusing on that CTS. Um, and I'm kind of curious what we find with those.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
or what our
I
thoughts are
haven't
on those.
looked for availability and price points on those yet, recently. So we'll give that a
Yeah,
look see and see what we come up with.
I did the good old Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll have to talk about that next week. All right. Any final thoughts on the RX8 before we call it?
Only final thought is, it's definitely not a daily driver for most, but I could picture, daily driving one, um, for sure. It's got some shortcomings, but I could rip it around on the weekends and have some fun with it. Um,
Yeah.
so,
So
you know,
so you
you could go to car shows, and if you had a clean one, it would people know it enough that you'd get a little, if you had a clean, nice RX8, you would get some attention from people that were just more so curious about the uniqueness of it.
yeah. I mean I'm not sure I'd say call it a daily driver, but I liked how you talked about driving it on the weekend. I think it would be like a fun, like twisty, little Sunday cruiser,
Yeah.
or
So when I say daily
or
drive,
drifter.
I am very fortunate where I can take a lot of back roads into work. So
Yeah.
I can, when I take my Harley into work, I don't take the highway. I take, secondary roads, and I'm winding the whole way in. So I can pick and choose. So my daily commute is essentially I go to work and back. Um, and I'm not going to take it to the grocery store per se, but I will if I have to stop on my way home.
Yeah.
Um, so, if you're in traffic light situation, no, but I don't think I passed more than two traffic lights my whole way to work. So, yeah,
Yeah, right, because you're taking all the twisty roads,
yeah,
and, I wasn't even thinking about it as just, like, traffic lights. I was just thinking, like, I don't know, is that, like I've kinda been enjoying driving, like, a mini SUV. That's something that's a little bit easier to get in and out of, a little bit higher.
you're getting old,
Like,
Brandon.
I
You're
am.
getting too
No, you
old.
know what?
You can't squat. Getting in and out of a car is also a thing. Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the other thing too, though, is, like, so many cars these days are so big that you like to see around the car, and when you're in a smaller car lower down,
yeah.
right, you can't see around the car in front of you, and let's face it, everybody drives too close these days, so you need to try to look at the brake lights ahead, but if the car's so large that you can't even see through the back windshield to see the brake lights of the car in front of you, then
Yep, agree, agree. So it's more of a weekender car for sure. And if you look, most
yeah,
of the mileage that I've seen reflects that. The age and the mileage is not a car that's been driven 12
yeah,
plus thousand miles a year. It's definitely under
yeah.
that, whatever the average is these days, but it's definitely under that. So,
Yeah, it was probably like a graduation gift for somebody from college or high school,
yeah,
around about this time, and they've had it ever since, and I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
There's probably a small market of people that are big RX-8 fans that are, like, cringing at this right now, but
They're like, they butchered this. This car is so much
yeah.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, I'd love to get in one, honestly. I think at one point, and looking at the rest of the list and kind of some of the other cars, I could see it creeping its way up higher than where it's sitting. Um, as we go through the list. Um, I do think it could be a fun car. I don't know if I can get over those front fenders.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's my biggest
And the
woe.
reliability. Yeah, yeah. So
Well, that too. Like I was watching one thing about it, and I think it came to the oiler, and they're like, either it works or it explodes, and there's no way to tell that it's going to explode. I was
yeah.
like, oh, well, that seems really reliable.
Right. Right.
But yeah. All right, cool. Well,
All right.
thanks for tuning in for this edition of vehicles and videos. Again, next week we'll be talking about the Cadillac CTS and its brothers and sisters in the Corvette world as well. And yeah, thanks
All
for
right.
listening, guys.
Thank you guys. Have a good evening.